Welcome to science class. Today we are going to begin learning about natural resources and human impact. Everything that we do requires energy and the use of resources, whether it be food or livestock or minerals or metals or fossil fuels or even just water. We use these resources in countless ways. The way in which we have used them has also transformed greatly over time. Animals used to be our vehicles and our tractors, and our hands were our combines and tools. The wind was our motor for navigating the globe, and running water was the generator that powered our factories, what little factories there were. The ability to extract the unreal power locked inside of the molecular structure of fossil fuels has given every man, woman, and child the potential power of 1,000 of their predecessors. The industrial and modern eras have really been the eras of productivity, for better and sometimes for worse. Let's get started. For today, we are going to focus solely on what energy is. Energy is defined as the capacity to do work. In other words, energy is what makes things go or allows things to change. And there's energy all around us, and it comes in pretty much two forms: kinetic and potential. Kinetic energy is the energy that a body possesses by being in motion. One of Newton's laws of motion states that force is equal to mass times acceleration. It takes exactly twice as much effort and energy to lift a 50 kilogram weight 1 meter in the air in 1 second as it does to lift a 25 kilogram mass 1 meter in the air in 1 second. Examples of kinetic energy include wind, flowing water, steam trapped below our feet, or created by power plants, and the work that animals do. Potential energy is the energy possessed by a body by virtue of its position relative to other bodies, or stresses within itself, or electric charge, or other factors. The classic example is two rocks perched on two ledges of different height. The rock that is higher up has more potential energy. It would release more energy, do more damage, cause more change when it impacted the ground. A spring or rubber band or a bouncy ball has potential energy locked within itself, which are examples of internal stresses. The atmosphere contains huge amounts of potential energy, which are released as lightning bolts or a tornado or a hurricane or just a regular storm. Batteries have potential energy. They can make things go. Food is potential energy, for both you and me and for animals. Sunlight is also potential energy. And of course, the greatest source of potential energy is the hydrocarbon bonds of our fossil fuels. Well, it's greatest in terms of actual use. A 1 kilogram uranium rod has upwards of 1 million times more potential energy stored within it than a kilogram of coal. We just don't rely on nuclear power as much as fossil fuels. And the potential energy from the sun vastly outweighs everything else. Historically, people used pretty much exclusively kinetic energy for the big stuff. Boats used the wind or flowing currents of water or human muscle. Planting and harvesting was done by hand and with animals. Travel was done on foot or by horse or camel. And wars were fought with horses and camels and hand-swung weapons. Some cultures did find unique ways of manipulating water for manufacturing. Now, obviously, without food for nourishment, we couldn't have done anything, but we just didn't know how to find and extract other large amounts of potential energy in any way. Wood was basically the only other potential energy resource. We would burn the wood to make charcoal, which we used to cook and make stronger metal alloys and to heat homes, but that's about it. We went about doing things for thousands of years that way. People are smart, so if you give them a few thousand years to work on a problem, they'll figure out the best way to use what they've got. So, what were the results of thousands of years of harvesting the most readily available and ubiquitous energy resources all around us? Well, virtually everybody who wasn't nobility was a subsistence farmer. People regularly starved. It took 6 months to travel the Oregon Trail. It took Magellan 3 years to circumnavigate the Earth. and only 22 of the 270 crew members lived. Magellan wasn't one of them. It took 80 camels or 30 horses to haul what a semi-truck can, and camels and horses only move 3 or 4 miles per hour, and you have to feed them. So basically, we were pretty limited in our ability to exert power, to do work. The amount of energy out there in nature is really staggering. Between the wind and running water, and especially the sun, there's more measurable energy than we could ever consume, even with over 7.5 billion of us. The problem is that natural forms of energy are very hard to control and make them do what you want to do. We will discuss that problem more when we compare fossil fuels and alternative energy resources. I've been describing energy, but I want to put energy into more practical terms that we can try to understand. A light bulb consumes huge amounts of energy, but we really don't see how that happens. A gallon of gas can make a 1-ton car go 100 kilometers. How much energy are we talking about in order to do that? Turns out there are all kinds of ways to figure this out. The universal energy unit is called the joule, and it amounts to the energy required to push a 1 kilogram mass a distance of exactly 1 meter in exactly 1 second. This is also the definition of a watt, with the watt being used to describe a sustained output of 1 joule per second. But you can convert any type of energy into another, and we can do some interesting examples of this. The average fastball in Major League Baseball exerts 161 joules. A fastball seems like a very energetic thing, but a 60-watt light bulb consumes the same amount of energy in just 2.7 seconds. When you turn on the lights, it feels like literally nothing has just happened. But the amount of power it takes to keep those bulbs lit all day is actually huge. A Tour de France biker will burn around 6,000 calories a day. If you hooked up one of those bikers to a stationary bike and configured it to capture and store electricity, and it worked perfect and captured all of those 6,000 calories, those calories would light a 60-watt bulb for less than 5 days. And light bulbs are some of the least energy-intensive items in your house. Those 6,000 calories would only run an air conditioner for about 10 hours. There are many other ways to measure energy: horsepower, torque, BTUs, calories, kilocalories, and so on. Fun fact, a gallon of gasoline stores the equivalent of 31,000 kilocalories. But for the rest of this unit, when we talk about energy, we will almost exclusively be talking about electricity, because civilization doesn't work without electricity. So we will use the kilowatt hour to put electricity consumption into perspective. A kilowatt is 1,000 watts, and a kilowatt hour is the amount of energy it takes to keep a 100-watt light bulb lit for 10 hours. 10 times 100 is 1,000, so there's our 1,000 watts. This equals 3.6 million joules. Before we wrap up, let's do some perspective taking. We already did this with the Tour de France example, but we're going to take that a little further because I want you to understand just how much energy it takes to have a civilization like we have. The average American consumes around 2,200 calories a day. That amount of energy would keep a 100-watt light bulb lit for 22 hours. So if you devoted all of your effort in a day to powering your own home, that's all you could accomplish. A 1-horsepower engine produces the same amount of energy in just 3 hours. Now, it really wouldn't work this way because the majority of the calories you burn go towards just keeping your body alive, but whatever. If you take all of the appliances in your home and factor in transportation and a few other things, and convert their energy in watts or whatever to calories, then the average American consumes 186,000 of these machine calories in one day. The things which you use every day, which seem so ordinary and don't seem like they require that much energy, are vastly more energy dependent than you realize. And they are completely irreplaceable because we can't do what those technologies do at the scale they do them. Without constant supplies of electricity and fuel, we can't do anything. When I said the industrial and modern ages are really the eras of productivity, now hopefully you see what I mean. The United States is the third most populous country on Earth, but we still only have 4.3% of the population. However, the United States consumes 30% of all the energy in the world, which is pretty incredible. The entire continent of Europe has well over twice the population of the United States, but we still consume more energy than they do. Our per capita consumption is among the highest in the world. Now, to be clear, this doesn't mean that we are taking energy away from somebody who could use it. We just consume 30% of the energy that happens to be made. There's no limit to how much more energy could be produced. And as countries like China and India become more industrialized with their huge populations, the share of energy that we account for will go down as a percentage, but the total amount of energy we use will continue to rise. Next time, we're going to focus on fossil fuels and learn what they are, where they come from, and how they are used. Thanks for watching.